So the new prices for the 2024 C8 Corvette have been released, and it's seen that there is an increase in price along the whole board, whether it's the base Stingray or the Z06 or even the new E-Ray. But it got me thinking about what the price could be for the new ZR1. So I started doing some number projections and figuring out what that base price could be. And the answer might surprise you. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. So thanks for tuning into the channel, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We do Corvette product reviews, how-to videos, news, and the typical car rally and car show, but all around the Corvette platform. So if that's something that interests you and you like this video, I invite you to subscribe to the channel as well as like this video. It does help me know that this kind of information is useful to you, as well as help grow the channel. So thank you for that. So alrighty, like I said before, there's been an increase in the price of the 2024 C8 Corvette, and the Stingray has been affected along with the Z06 and the E-Ray. And it's interesting to see this year that for the base Stingray, it has been increased $2,000. Along with an extra $100 on the destination fee, which now puts it $10,000 over the original base price when the C8 first came to market. And there's been a lot of talk about the ZR1, about what that price could look like, but it's been one of those things that with these small incremental adjustments, like those kind of things can have a drastic effect on what that ZR1 price is going to be. And so I started actually looking through the history of when ZR1s were out on the market in regards to previous generations. And the ZR1 name itself has been on the C3, C4, C6 and C7 generation. They didn't really use the ZR1 name on the C5 generation for some reason, but in general, it has been used on those different ones. So I figured there's a little bit of data to work with in order to create some kind of projection of what that number for the new ZR1 could look like. So I started actually collecting all that data. Now, to do that and getting into the meat of this episode, I did start putting together a chart, and by start, I already did it, of what that's going to look like, and I'm going to be sharing it here. So we're going to kind of walk through this together of what I found to be the numbers in regards to previous generations, what Chevy was offering those as their prices, and then coming up with some numbers for 2025, which is what the rumor has been that when the ZR1 is going to be officially released as a 2025 model. So if you see me kind of looking to the side, it's because I'm looking at my computer and looking at this chart to then share with you guys as I'm talking about it. So this is a little bit of a show and tell. So by the way, I would love to know what you think the actual price of the ZR1 is going to be. I'm really curious. Before watching the rest of this episode, put it in the comments below. I really want to see where people's minds are in regards to what that ZR1 price is going to be. So this should be really interesting to see what you guys think about is going to be the price and what my projections have come to show that. And by all means, I'm not any kind of mathematician expert. I'm an engineer, which kind of helps, but I'm not any kind of expert in making projections. So now we're going to be looking at only generations that have had a ZR1 being sold, and I caveat that saying that we're going to be looking at generations 6, 7, and 8, and not 3 and 4, because those are a little bit older generations, and I wanted to try to keep the numbers somewhat reasonably applicable. I want to make sure that I'm comparing apples to apples, not apples to, well, I guess different kind of apples. You know what I'm trying to get at. The point is, I wanted to try to keep it above the year 2000 to keep the reasonable, to try to keep the numbers at least reasonably recent as possible. And by the way, with all this information, we are just looking at base price numbers. I didn't take into consideration what upgrades would do to prices and such. Honestly, if I did that, it would be a giant freaking rabbit hole that I would go down to. It would feel like I am literally that guy putting freaking lines in the wall, trying to connect the dots. It's like Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philly, trying to literally figure out everything and put everything together in a crazy conspiracy just to get to one final freaking number. I'm not gonna do that. I need to keep my sanity here. So majority of these numbers I got from the Kelley Blue Book value, so I figured that that was a good trustworthy source. Then again, the numbers might be different depending on what source you get them from. I couldn't really find it from GM directly, so So bear with me on that these numbers might not be completely, might not be the exact numbers, but for the most part, I feel like these are good, trustworthy numbers that you can, that we could definitely work with here. So going through what the data I have here, I have then the base, the base prices for the different generations according to the year, and going through the markup, you can see that the prices have increased steadily due to inflation, all these kind of different things going on for the base Stingray model here. Now, when we get to 2025, obviously that is in yellow here. Those are just projections of what I believe is going to happen, kind of deal. So at least looking at the base model, especially in the C8, we've seen it on average increasing in price around $2,000 each year that it's been out in the market, kind of ish. So it was a healthy observation, it was a healthy estimation that in 2025 there might be another $2,000 increase. It might be the case, it might not, but that's where I found it. But that's what I found to be the most reliable, since from 2020 to then 2024, the price has gone up $10,000. Now from there, I pulled all the different prices for the Z06 of the different generations, and then did the same thing for the ZR1 when it was available for those years. Any part that's basically in gray is either they didn't sell one in that of that model in that year, or it just is not applicable. So that's why you see in the C6, in the very first year they didn't have a Z06 or ZR1, but then in the next year you saw the Z06 being introduced and being sold, and the same with the ZR1, how you see in the picture. So from there, I started looking at then the difference in percentage between the base model of the Stingray to the Z06 or the ZR1. At least between the different generations, they tried to maintain a reasonable amount of a percentage increase from the base to the next model up, or whether it was the Z06 or the ZR1. So that was good to see, because that data shows a trend. Now, it does make it a little bit difficult in regards to the C7 generation, because at least when it comes to the ZR1, they only sold it for one freaking year, which is a little frustrating because I would have liked to have had a little bit more data to work with. But it does help us at least know something important, at least when you compare the ZR1 to the Z06, that there is a certain percentage of an increase, and it's reasonably consistent. And that was one of the key factors for me to basically make a reasonable prediction of what the ZR1 is going to cost. Okay, so the first thing that I looked at in regards to trying to come up with a projection, again, is that potential price for the 2025 C8 base price. And I just added essentially an extra $2,000, keeping with the average that we've seen along the previous few years for the C8. Next, I did the same thing essentially for the 2025 Z06, and I kind of kept it very simple. I added $2,000 to that one as an increase, and you can see that right here. So the Z06 had a $5,000 increase from the previous year, which was a hefty amount, but I wanted to try to keep it between the 5,000 that they had it and basically kind of match what the C8 base price is doing, and just add an extra 2,000 to see where we get from there. So that's what I did with that. The next thing that I looked at then was what that percentage would be between the base and the Z06. And again, like I said before, it puts that percentage between the difference in price right in the middle between the two different years, like previous years. So I felt pretty comfortable about making that assumption for now. So the next thing though from there I looked at was the ZR1 and over base price. What kind of percentage can be looked at? Now this one, as you can see, is way more aggressive than I had it before, and there's and that's actually for a good reason. I mean, one, it still is within the under the highest percentage seen at least on the C6, where we had a 24.5 increase percentage. So it's not totally out of the realm, but it is definitely on that higher limit. But the reason why I did that though was because of this upcoming thing here in regards to the ZR1 and Z06 difference. Now, this is honestly the most telling information for me, at least when it comes to the previous generation. You can see that consistently they've tried to keep it in the 40 to 43% range if you take the average of these. So what that tells me is they want to keep that Chevy is trying to keep that range, at least when it comes from the Z06 to the ZR1. So that in itself was something that I wanted to try to closer match what this potential new ZR1 would be priced at. So I came up with a number of 40.2%. That's still a little bit lower on the percentages, especially because they're more, you see the prices be about more like around 43% or so on average for these, but I thought that that was a reasonable amount. Now, by putting that as a percentage between these all together, I'm able to come up with a final number, which I probably should put like a drum roll to this, but the final number I came to is $157,000 for a base price for the ZR1, which is kind of interesting. The projections that are being talked about is like around 150,000, but I honestly think that those are a little bit on the lower side. I think that it's actually going to be projected to be maybe 155, 157. And part of that is because of the general increase in price over the last 5 years on this C8 Corvette. Though some of those early projections, when I was at least hearing about them, they were back 2 years ago, and they were listing it as 150,000. But if you look 2 years from that back then to maybe another year and a half from now, it's pretty reasonable to see 155, 157 as being a base price for the new ZR1. So I thought that was actually kind of interesting, and that means I need to save a lot more if I want to be able to get one. So, but in any case, I am really excited for when GM decides to throw us a bone and reveal all the juicy details for the ZR1. I'm looking forward to it. When they do, I will definitely be sharing it with all of you guys. And in the meantime, check out any of my other videos, and we'll see you next time.